I'm gonna ask you a question. So, what advice would you give to people who want to undo that substitution of values, who want to substitute their values back to original ones in order to constantly become a better person, to help everyone around, to bring safety to themselves and to their children? So, what would be the way to do
Well,
that?
that's a really good question, actually. I would say that in this day and time where we are right now, there's already somewhat of a reset of these values occurring. So, like what you referred to, like you had to be a doctor, a dentist, or a lawyer, or whatever, when you were younger. Otherwise, you thought you were going to be broke. Well, I heard the same things, and I'm 40 years older than you. Well, 37 years older. So, that was the problem, yeah. So, like, people would say, oh, you can't be a gardener, you'll starve, or whatever, right? Now, ideally, what you said was what I heard. People would say, look, whether you want to be a photographer or a painter or a musician or a doctor, look, if that's what you really want to do and your heart is in the right place and you work hard, you can be happy and you can get a good living, ideally. However, what's happened is, like, people in a lot of these fields can't make a living anymore, for example, because if you're maybe if you're a photographer, the prices are so low for the service, you just can't do it anymore, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly the case for all photography. I'm just saying in general, right? Industry's changed a lot. So, in respect to your question, yeah, a lot of these people have realized they've been on the wrong path, I would argue, and they want to go back to the basics, and I think really that's what people need to do. But ideally, we must remember that you have to have a level playing field. So what I mean by that is, look, if I wanted to be a photographer or an artist or programmer or whatever, I'm not going to bother spending the time and energy in this day and age if I know it's not going to pay off for me in some form of success. And I don't necessarily mean monetarily, right? I need to know it's going to be able to give me the simple things that I want. I want to be safe. I want to have a future. I want to have a house or a roof over my head, my family's head, have opportunity that's better for my children, feel good about myself. I mean, these are simple things that humans want to better themselves, right? And ideally, if you make other people around you better, everything around you is better. So you had success, in my opinion. So that's ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I suggest today is what's happening is those simple values are really what people need to get back to. Because, I mean, if you're not doing something for you or your family or for your future, what are you doing it for? So that reassesses this value system right off the gate. Like, are you just going to be rich? How many people do you know or heard about or seen about all these stories? Billionaires, trillionaires, if you want, as far as I'm concerned, their last breath on their deathbed, they don't care how much money they got. They care about their family, their friends, what they've done in their life, and they regret. Okay, so those are the important things, right? So if the rules are level, and I assume that we are moving into a future where they are, I think it's easy to reset those values because everybody has them. Okay, they're really a common set of values that everybody has.
Yeah.
So first off, you have to assume that, and I'll call them rules, even though it's not best, but it's environment, your operating environment. You need to know some kind of predictability of what you're operating in. So if you want to be an engineer, you want to build rockets, or you want to design software, or be an amazing doctor or inventor, or solve problems for the world, or just for your kids, I mean, you still have to know that the operating environment you're working in is constant with respect to what you need to do to be successful in it. And then you can make your own decision whether you're willing to do what the cost is, and I don't mean monetarily, the cost is to be successful in a certain area. If the environment is honest, people make that decision themselves, right? Because not everybody wants to be a farmer, but a lot of people that are brilliant, probably the best chess players or musicians or writers in the world, just want to farm. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but they have to know that they can. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think it just comes down to the basics. That the operating environment you have to know is consistent with respect to knowing what you have to do to be successful in whatever you want to do. So that's the first thing I would do. If somebody wants to be successful in a business or whatever you want to do some research first and find out if it's an honest environment to work in, okay? Because there's still a lot of troubled areas. And in my experience, the last 30 years plus, looking at just industry and products and development and sales and engineering and all these kinds of, I found a lot of hokey environments. I mean, a lot of rigged games, and people have to make a decision. Now, fair enough, it's similar. People will do the research to look at, they go, okay, I have to be a criminal almost to operate in this environment, but people will make that decision. They'll go, okay, well, I'm in it too far now, I have to, or they'll say, I'm okay with that because it's going to give me what I want. Okay, but that's not a sustainable future, in my opinion. Anybody that thinks it is going to go down a rabbit hole that they're never going to get out of. And subsequently, a lot of people are there right now. So, repeat, do your research, find out whether or not it's a level playing field. When I first wanted to go into medicine and I thought I was going to do pre-med, it didn't take me long after looking into it to find out there was something really wrong here. And I realized that, and I hate to say this, but 30 years ago, it looked like drug dealers to me, you know, because I didn't see many people getting cured. I see a lot of symptoms getting treated for profit. And the longer people stay sick and the more
symptoms.
Right, because they're creating
More
a market for a product that really doesn't have any value. So again, you're almost bribing people with money to try to get people to buy into a product, if you will, that really has no value. In fact, a lot of the time is dangerous or damaging, right? But if that's the operating environment and it doesn't change, well, people have to make that decision. Being human, most people in their consciousness can't do that to other people. 99.9% don't want to live like that. So they either have to be brainwashed, they have to be hardened, or they have to just blind themselves to the impacts of what they're doing to try to make a living. That's not a sustainable future. Okay, so look at the operating environment you're in and find out what it is, what are the rules, and then decide, are you willing to work within those to do what you have to do to be successful? That's the first thing I would do. And then you might find out that there's like 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 different operating environments to give you different opportunities where you'd say, oh, well, I have a skill set that's good in that one. Yeah, I could try that. And it's not necessarily that you have to buy into one thing only and live and die on it. You know, whereas like when I was first going to school, that's all I heard. You got to know what you're going to do with your life. You have to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to die. You're going to dry up on the side of the street and starve. Like, thanks for the positive reinforcement, right? Like, I mean, you know, and I was thinking that way when I was younger. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, I did a lot of different things in my life until I found my niche, so to speak, right? And through that process of trying to learn what I wanted to do and research these different markets, if you will, I learned a lot about myself, and I found that those skills I learned helped me in whatever I was going to do. It didn't matter. Just the process of reassessing your values to find a place that works within your value set, you will develop better skills socially, consciously, physically, to be better in anything you decide to do, because you're going to be better equipped to do it. So first you have to start somewhere, look, research, but don't be tied to one thing, because I've never seen anybody be successful in one field that didn't have a multiple skill set. I've never seen it.
I look at this like you build your own personality. You have to build sustainable, strong frame, and that having this frame allows you to do other things. For example, if you're good at something, you're not just good at something because you're good at something. You're not just good programmer or writer or whatever, mechanic, whatever, you name it. Just because you're good at programming, fixing cars, or cooking, I don't know. But because you have, but you're good at it because you have a systematic approach and knowledge and wisdom how to learn stuff, how to set goals, how to achieve them. Also, you mentioned environment. I would add that, for example,
your operating environment.
If we compare, for example, so-called West and so-called East, there are differences in culture, how they work in the West and how they work in the East. And you lived in Asia for some time, so you probably noticed the difference. So in Asian culture, so basically doesn't matter what you do, you're doing it, and you're doing something, and you have to be professional because you have to be focused, you have to be concentrated, and you have to have enough passion,
Commitment.
commitment to make good for you and for your family. And you have to believe in what you do, because otherwise you don't have your identity, you don't have personality. And if you want to change to another business, to another kind of activity, how can you do this if you can't be sustainable in what you do right now? So
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
you're going to be switching for some external values, but you're not going to be able to gain energy and some values from inside, and that's a big problem. So that basically, like in Eastern countries, they understand this. As for example, if you go to Turkey or to Asian countries, like for example, most of the businesses you see, most of them are local businesses founded or run by families. But
Yeah.
for example, if you go to bigger cities, even in Vietnam,
That's what I was actually going
or
to say.
if like in Russia, you go
That's
to
a
Moscow.
huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So like for example, in Asia, when I was there, and I spent about 4.5 years in Asia, I noticed that compared to where I grew up in the West, just about everything is a family-run business, and which is just not allowed where I came from anymore. I mean, they passed laws to stop you from doing that. Like, you can't have a business out of your house. You can't have a market on the corner in front of your apartment
You
building.
probably can't even
No,
have family members.
you need permits and
Yes, you
and
have to
all-
hire your own family members.
Yeah, it would be
officially,
ridiculous.
and
There's just no way. And in fact, I would argue that the evidence shows that they were intentionally trying to stop that because they didn't want that competition. Somebody's trying to control, again, fabricate a market for a fake product that nobody really wants. So you have to force people to not grow their own food or not sell their own food.
Because family doesn't only care about profit; it cares about future of its family.
That's correct.
The families around and neighbors.
Hence, in Asia, I noticed family is huge. Okay, and I noticed that very quickly when I was there. And I've always said this, even where I come from: without family, what do you got? Because in the end, that's what keeps you existing. You can do whatever you want in this life, and you can make $1 billion. But if you don't have a future for a family, what did you do it for? Every single person that lived before you, that's in your genes, is going to stop with you because you wanted to be a billionaire. If you have that as your goal, okay, if every one of your ancestors could have any input on that decision, I bet they would say, what is wrong with you? We sacrificed everything so we could continue to exist as a family, and you want to stop it now because you want to live in a yacht. You know, I when I go to cultures like Asia, I see they're doing everything for family. Everything. It's for their kids, for their family, for their future, and hence the cultures themselves accommodate that. So, you know, there's family-run businesses all over the place. You don't need a permit to sell sandpaper in the corner store. If you want, go right ahead. If you want to be the guy selling phones or phone plans, go right ahead. They're not going to have regulations and permits out your yin yang.
Doing it for family. If you're building a
yeah, I mean, you can do it right out of your house, right? And that gives people the freedom of the opportunity to find out what they want to do and give them flexibility to work in their own little niche of a market of what they need in their specific environments, right?
Yeah.
You see, it works, and you know, people are happy. People don't need as much money, frankly, because they know they got enough for what they need. If somebody wants to go out and go crazy and make more money, go right ahead. And most of these people willingly work on their own 12, 14, 16 hours a day because it's for their family. And most of the businesses, even I saw when I was growing up, the people that were doing it for themselves and their family were way more successful businesses. If they're just doing it for money, they tend to go under.
Because it's long term and short term.
Yeah, because because again, their personal values or their success they're measuring is not sustainable, right? It's like, if I'm measuring my success on having a yacht, well, okay, that's my goal, to have a yacht. I don't care about my future. I don't care about the future of my product line. I don't care about the future of my family or my company or my employees. I don't care, because my goal is to have a yacht. So I guess if that's your goal, I guess that's what you would do. But people have to ask themselves, your ancestors would say, what are you thinking? They really would. They would not go along with this. They wouldn't say, oh yeah, I sacrificed everything so you can have a yacht and our family just dies, you know? So I think that people are actually in a really good position now in most of the world. And I would argue, like in Russia versus the West, I don't think the culture is that much different. I really don't. I mean, Anywhere I go, I find cities are the same.
You're right.
People are competing. They're always in a hurry.
Mhm.
They need money more. There's less opportunity for money because there's more competition. But there's more opportunity to make money if you're willing to do the crazy things you need to,
Mhm.
because you can take advantage of a lot more people.
Mhm.
And I see that that's the methodology, whether it's in Cambodia or Vietnam or Turkey or Indonesia or Canada or Russia. I don't think there's anything much different there.
Yeah, it's mostly located in some certain areas, like big cities.
Yeah.
Moscow can be considered as a Russian New York.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't see much different. Yeah, there's social differences. Obviously, there's cultural difference, obviously. But generally speaking, it's not much different in the way people
System
operate.
is very similar,
It's a systems issue, and I'm a systems analyst, so that's the way I look at it. Whereas if you're in a smaller community, where more family-based, on the ground, real earth values matter, people are more concerned with the things that are closer to their family heart. They're more concerned with friends and family and good food and safety, and that's the priority. And they don't have to go 50 kilometers driving somewhere and kick, scratch, and scream for an extra dollar to do it, which is what you would have to do in a larger city. And largely, more and more, it's become that way. So, I mean, I like the smaller communities now because I like that value set, and I find it's more comfortable for me to operate in. And I think you could be just as successful there as you can in the city. Actually, I would argue you'd be more successful because you wouldn't have to worry about all this garbage competition, having to get around all these backwards values that have messed so many people up. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question, but in closing, I would say that I think the opportunity is better than ever. Look at the operating environment you want to work in, make some decisions on what maybe you think you want to do.
Focus on your intent.
Focus on your intent and be honest with yourself about doing research. Am I willing to do what I need to do to be successful in that operating environment? And as long as it's reasonably clear, if you do research what it is you need to do, you're willing to make that decision yourself, and you'll figure it out. And along that way, you learn a lot. You're going to be better no matter what you do, right? And most people in the end think they know what they want to do, but they always end up almost always somewhere else. And everywhere you end up, you might say, well, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. And the rest of this was just a path to get there. So don't be so hung up on, if I don't get that yacht, then I'm a failure. No, maybe just the idea of wanting to have a yacht got you to the point where you realized you didn't want it, right? So don't be down on yourself if you're not getting your goals right away. Be practical, be honest, especially when you're younger. I think the future for young people is amazing right now. From my travels and what I see right now, I would actually want to be here 30 years ago because I could see there's more honest opportunity. I really do believe that. And be honest, work hard, follow the law, and as long as the rules, so to speak, are clear, you can make your own decision whether you want to do it or not. If you're in an environment where the rules are sketchy and they're always changing, and the guy with the most voice or loudest voice gets all the hurrah or the money or whatever, I would argue that's not a healthy environment for you. It doesn't matter to me what you're doing. You probably don't want to go there if you recognize there's something wrong with the values and the anxiety involved with some of these career choices. Get out of it. Go into a different direction and you're going to be better off.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Todd.
Oh, yes. You're very welcome. I hope it helps. And we'll do it again someday.
We should.
All right.
Okay. That was Todd.
That's it.
Я не знал, как решить. Okay. That was Todd Paget. We've just discussed common pitfalls and problems in modern business models, but not only that.
Just in life.
Yeah,
Really?
basically how to live life and how to set goals. Нет. Нет, я уже поздоровался. Не надо, не говори.
You can do that in Russian.